the Fish4Thought event. Before our scientists come up to give a short presentation on their digital innovations, we will have a short video for you to enjoy.
Okay, that's great. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Khor, and on behalf of the Aquatic Animal Health and One Health team here at WorldFish, I'd like to just give you, through a set of photo slides, a picture of just one of those digital innovations you saw in that video just now. So So my focus will be on the digital tracking of fish farm performance and health. So if you take a look at this picture here, you see that this farm is having a very bad day. There's a lot of dead fish floating in the cage, and the workers are scrambling to get whatever they can harvest out of there. And I used to work for a farm just like this. And in this situation where they have a fish kill, the farmer would pick up the phone and call me frantically. Can you come over right now and find out what's happening? How do I explain this to the boss? And so before I even get to the farm, which takes about a journey of an hour by ferry and then by speedboat, the farmer would have already thrown all of these dead fish directly out into the sea. And I'm sure the neighboring farm would have been doing the same thing as well, throwing all these dead fish, which might carry some infection with them, into the same water body that is being shared, not just by us, but by other farms as well. And so by the time I arrived at the farm, I would quickly get the farmer for an interview and ask him about all the questions that matter. When did this happen? What do you think caused the fish to die? Did you feed the fish too much, or did you handle the fish in a different way? So I would take my little notebook and start writing down, what the farmer would say. Then it is another rush for me all the way back to the office, carrying my fish samples and that little notebook that I have all that data in. Then once I reached the office, I would have to sit at the computer to retype all that information into a Word document. And it just sits there in my computer after that. Because in my mind, I think, I can send this to the boss anytime he needs that information. And very rarely he asks me for that report. And once I'm done with all that, all the desk work, then I'll pick up the phone and I'll start to call the local researcher that I know of. And maybe if my boss agrees, I can report it to the fisheries department, because farms like these do not always want to report incidents of fish disease. And so, 10 years later, 10 years down the line, I believe the process is still very much the same. When the farmer has a fish kill, if they don't have a staff to report this, they may or may not contact their local extension officer, who then passes on this information to someone in their department with the right skill sets, who has knowledge about aquatic animal disease. And so by the time they send someone from the department to investigate the farm, normally the event is long over. There's not a single dead fish left because they've thrown it away, and not even a single sick fish for them to observe. So what they get from that visit is just a single report that they type into a file, and it maybe sits on their computer on a shelf. And it remains uninvestigated because no one makes the links between these cases if they occur, and no one follows up on it. There's not enough information. Nowadays, though, we do have something called the smartphone. Almost everyone will have it, including the farmers. And it is so easy to actually capture a picture of the dead fish or share videos of how the fish are moving about in the tank, and even to share news of diseases that are happening in the farms within social media. But the problem is, in the farming community, especially in aquaculture, this kind of information, it's quite hard to get. It's scattered, it's not organized, and it's quite isolated. No one is piecing all this information together. But when we, as humans, we have illness, we have a more organized way of doing things. We bring ourselves to the doctor at a local hospital or clinic, and then the doctor, before he even takes our pulse or measures our blood pressure, he asks us a set of questions about what are the symptoms we are having, what is our medical history, and maybe what did we do or what happened to us right before we fell ill. And he will write all of this information on a card. You'll notice a white or yellow card, and that is the patient medical record. And it is based on this information with his medical background that he will draw some sort of conclusion on what type of disease we have. It's called a presumptive diagnosis. And based on that diagnosis, he will know what type of medications to prescribe to us so that we go home feeling better. So when he compares all these medical records together and he sees that, oh, there's a lot of similarities between these cases of patients here in my area. And when he sees the number rise, he will feel the need to report it to the Ministry of Health because it could be an emerging disease. And then if the Ministry of Health finds that it's indeed a new disease that's spreading faster than they can control, they will issue a warning to the public, telling them of guidelines on how they can avoid being infected by the disease. And also the local hospitals or clinics will start stocking up on medication or equipment to handle the patients that come in. But with fish, the story is very different. The fish cannot speak for themselves. They cannot admit themselves to a local clinic. You depend very much on the farmer to observe how the fish are behaving and to pass on this information to whomever they trust, maybe their local extension officer or their feed supplier. And then maybe finally this information will arrive at the right person, an expert in aquatic animal health. And normally these experts, they need to know a lot of information, not just the fact that fish have died and how many have died. They need to know what were the clinical signs, what was the conditions in the farm and the water and the weather when that happened, and also maybe was there any different way that the farmer handled the fish right before they died? And without this information, it's very difficult for them to even guess what killed the fish. Was it disease or was it simply mishandling on the farmer's part? In developed countries such as Norway, they place a lot of importance on farm level information. In fact, they do depend a lot on digital surveillance data that they gather through very high-end technologies and equipment. They might even have software that automatically detects the environmental parameters at the farm. And so these software are normally used together with these expensive equipment. They use it to support their policies that in turn will help to improve the growth of their aquaculture industry. But in low-income countries, they may not have equal access to these kind of high-end technologies. They are very expensive, and their governments might not always be willing to immediately invest in a brand new piece of technology because they first need to find out, is it suitable to be used in their country, their climate, their types of production systems? And so things that we take for granted here, constant electricity, easy accessibility to internet, these countries might have problems with these two things. The two countries that I visited previously, Nigeria, Bangladesh, I've seen frequent power interruptions. And these power disruptions may actually damage this high-end equipment. And so even the software that are being used in developed countries, they may not be able to afford to maintain or pay the subscription fees for this software. And often all the maintenance and servicing is often done by overseas vendors. So what these countries actually need is technology that is cheap and easily available, such as this smartphone that all of you have, and a computer. And so what we have built here is something called the Fish Epidemiology and Health Economics Tool. It's a long word, so we'll call it the EPI tool for short. And we developed this together with the Norwegian Veterinary Institute, which is a reference lab for the World Organization for Animal Health, previously known as the OIE. And so this is actually a free electronic baseline survey tool that uses the concept of epidemiology, which is the study of disease and how it spreads, and uses that to help us identify what are the gaps in the farming system that actually allows disease to come in and to affect their stock. And you notice I mentioned the word health economics in there too, because we do collect data on what are the losses incurred due to those baseline mortality and disease. And just to mention, it is free, it can be shared by any team, and it can be contextualized to collect the type of information that country wants. So how does this work? It's quite easy. Once you have downloaded the tool through a mobile app called ODK, Collect Mobile App on your phone, you can use your phone and just go into any farm and start keying in information directly instead of using a notebook and then recopying it into a Word document which doesn't go anywhere. And then once you're done, at the end of the day, you just need to go find a Wi-Fi spot anywhere, maybe Starbucks, McDonald's, sit down, press a button, and immediately all this data you have collected from all the farms that day will be immediately sent to a server that you're connected with. And all this data is compiled automatically into a single data set, not just from you, but from other users as well who have submitted data from their own phones. And this is done through a platform called Kobo Toolbox, which can be accessed on any computer. So once you have that data online, this can be accessed by any team across the globe. You can share it with your local researchers, or you can even share it with the international aquatic animal health experts whom you might want to consult with if you have no idea what type of disease you're dealing with and you need their feedback on how to control that particular disease. And at the national level, you can also share it with policymakers, because this is the type of data they need to be able to back up all their decision-making processes to build the type of policies that will help the industry. So you've heard of the Fish CRP being mentioned earlier. We initially used this tool under the CGIAR research program for fish agri-food systems in Bangladesh, Egypt, and there's a publication that came out on that. And then over the years, this tool has evolved. We've changed it to match the countries that we use it in. So we've used it in Nigeria together under a project with the US Agency for International Development. And then last year, we also worked together with other CGIAR institutes to collect, as a modified tool, to collect data under an initiative for One Health. And this year, we have plans to use it in Africa under a project with the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation. And at the WorldFish level, we have plans to use it in support of our gift tilapia, our genetically improved carp, and maybe in future catfish as well. So this is just a short video to just show you how easy it is to get one of the apps that is used to download the tool. You can get it from Google Play Store. It is very simple, and it makes sure that you collect all the information you need without skipping any of the questions, and then you are allowed to submit that information. So in a way, it guarantees that you collect the complete information that is needed by an epidemiologist who wants to study what type of disease is affecting the fish. So you will see that it's nothing fancy, it's very simple, but I would say that its efficacy lies in its simplicity. If it's too high tech, no one's going to touch it. But if it's so simple that even, you know, anyone at the farm level can use it, then they will use it. So in the aquaculture industry, all the decisions and actions that are backed by readily available data, this can actually change the way that we deal with disease in aquaculture. And so all these insights that we get from that data, we can actually use it to build new industry standards. We can create guidelines for farmers to help them to minimize their losses. And also, most importantly, we can help them to spot emergent new diseases that has been going around because, you know, it's so easy to ship fish from one place to another these days, legally or not. And so all this, when you get all this kind of surveillance data that you can easily collect, access, and compile, and in combination with appropriate government responses and actions, it will create a symbiotic ecosystem where the farmer will happily come forward, you know, take not the fish, but take the data on my fish and my farm in exchange for the support he will get based on that data. And so just before I end my talk on the EPI tool, I'd like to stress that having data is not enough. It is not the end story. It is what you do with the data and how effectively you use it that matters. And so, you know, the insights we get from the data and our subsequent actions based on that knowledge will determine how successful we are in fighting disease in aquaculture. And that's the end of my slides. So thank you for listening. I'll hand over now to Hafiz, who is the next speaker.
Hello everyone, Assalamualaikum. My name is Hafiz. So I work closely with Alex Tile on PESCAS. So today I will be presenting about PESCAS. But before I talk about PESCAS, I would like to reiterate some of the issues that resulted in the development of PESCAS. So first of all, when we talk about small-scale fisheries, we know that small-scale fisheries often operated in remote areas where access to technology is limited, and therefore they are not able to enjoy this kind of technology. Secondly, in terms of cost, so the conventional AIS or the automated identification system or the VMS or the vessel monitoring system can be very costly and Therefore, small-scale fishers might not be able to afford these technologies. And thirdly, in terms of diversity, so basically, small-scale fisheries is very diverse. They have multiple fishing gears. For example, in Malaysia, we have about more than 10 fishing gears for small-scale fisheries. And then if we break down, for example, for drift net, even for drift net, if we break down the nets alone, we have multiple kinds of drift net targeted for specific species. So in relation to this, what I want to say is that although it is diverse, it is actually very small-scale fishing boat is very small and not be able to accommodate sophisticated tracking device. So now what is this? So this is actually the VTS or the vessel tracking system developed by a US company called Pelagic Data System. So there are some unique features of this device. For example, it is solar powered. So else than that, the installation is very simple. It's just plug and play. Basically, you just need a screwdriver to install it on the board, and then once it is installed, it is automatically activated, and then it will start collecting data autonomously. So I have few samples right there, so you can have a look. But as long as you don't bring it back home, yeah. So actually, next, how this device actually works. So basically, it runs on cellular network, which means that a fisherman needs to install this on their boats, and then once this device is installed, it will automatically collect the movement data, and then will transmit the data through to the cellular network tower, which will then be transferred to the cloud-based analytic system before being processed by the AI, and finally will generate some meaningful information. So for PESCAS, what is PESCAS actually? PESCAS means it's a digital system which integrates tracking data from this VTS and integrate the data with catch data from fishermen. And this is a simple diagram on how it works. So basically, you have 3 different entities here. The first entity is the SSF actors, which means which represents fishing communities, enumerators, and then usually they will be at the landing sites providing catch data and upload this data to the system. And then there's another layer of data provided by this VTS right here. The data will then be integrated and processed by the AI, and finally publish some kind of meaningful information or statistics which will be made available for public or the decision makers. So this is some visualization of how the vessel is tracked. So this vessel is actually in Penang. So I took this video last Friday. So what makes this device so special is that it actually collects data every 5 seconds, in which you can really determine the movement of the vessels and determine the speed of the vessel. So each of different colors represent different speeds. So for example, here the blue actually refers to speed below 1 nautical mile, which means fishing activities there's an ongoing fishing activities. And because the intervals of the data collection is every 5 seconds, you can really see the details of the movement. So in comparison to conventional GPS or conventional AIS, this data actually can be, we can say that it's quite accurate, might be more accurate to some kind of vessel, because there are AIS system out there which only provide tracking data for every 1 hour. So instead of looking at a straight line, you actually can see the actual movement of the vessel. So next, here, there are some other features available for PESCAS. For example, you can view multiple vessels all in once. So this represents movement of vessels for 1 week. So each color refers to one individual vessel. So this is the track that was collected for 1 week. So else that you can also always filter on what kind of information that you want. You can always filter what kind of fishing gears, where's the location that you want to track, and then you can always switch off or switch on some of the features, including the speed, the location, the colors, and everything. So PESCAS. So next, this is the data pipeline on how PESCAS actually works. So basically, the first step is where you have a community of fishers or the data enumerators staying at the landing site, collect data from the fishing boats, and then the data will then be transferred via Khor toolbox using mobile apps or Android phone, and then from this the data will then be transcripted and be scripted by the PESCA parser system before the data being transferred to the PESCA database. In the end, the database will then be processed by the AI to establish some meaningful information which is available for decision makers. So this visualization is represents the movement of vessels in Timor-Leste. So actually, PESCA started in Timor-Leste in 2019, or just before that, but the Timor-Leste government adopted PESCA as the official monitoring system for small-scale vessel in May 2019. So here you can actually see the movement of vessels. So currently we do have about more than 400 tracking systems, BTS, installed in Timor-Leste. Next. So this is the website or the platform developed by Alex Tilley and the team for Timor-Leste government. So all the data, cache data and information from the BTS and from the fishermen will be automatically processed and published in this website. So here they have multiple options or multiple things you can view. For example, here you can view the market price of the fish. You can view some nutritional value of the fish and composition of fish, catch volume, and everything. So what is good about this is that you can always download this data, which is openly accessible for public, and then in terms of the updates, the data will be automatically updated on a monthly basis. So this is a snapshot of the data that you can actually view from the PESCA's website. So next, although fishes are now available to view this data, but we do aware that those data might be meaningless for them, and then we think that they need to have more benefits of PESCA. So therefore, we are still exploring various mechanisms or various ways on how fishes can actually benefit from PESCA. For example, here in Penang, we are collaborating with University Science Malaysia to develop predictive catch models in which tracking data from this device and catch data from the fishermen will be integrated with findings from stable isotope, where in the end we expected that those findings will help fishermen in determining fishing grounds, so that in the end they can save their fuel, save their time, and then they can reduce the fish catch per unit efforts. So that is one of the plan. And then next is on how we can use PESCA's data to uphold blue justice or to strengthen the voice of small-scale fisheries. So if you notice, these three photos actually represent different set of data with regards to fishing vessels. So the Penang government, for the past few years, is promoting or is fighting to have the right to build 3 artificial islands at Pematang Damar Laut, somewhere about 15 minutes from our office. and they claim that this the construction of 3 artificial island will not affect the livelihood of small-scale fishers. So they hire a consultant and Bureau Land Services Sendirian Berhad to take satellite image just to prove that the construction of 3 artificial island will not affect fishermen. But however, a few months ago, few fishermen came to us asking whether we can provide them with data to compare the findings made by the government and our findings. So here this is data from the government. It says that there's only one vessel spotted at this location, whereas if according to our PESCAS data, that area is actually filled with lots of activities from fishermen, and then so that's how we help fishers to strengthen their voice, to provide them with strong justification and arguments to fight for their rights. There's also one case, I think, in Taiwan in 2016, where all spills have actually affected large portion of fishing ground, and therefore the fishing communities in that area were not able to fish there anymore. So it happens that during that time, the University of Taiwan is in the midst of conducting trials on the use of GPS and catch data, and then findings from that research actually helps the fishermen to get some estimation of the cost on the compensation. So in the end, this company called TS9 finally pays compensation amount of about 5 million USD to these fishermen. So we still in the midst of exploring how we can use PESCAS as the tools to strengthen the voice of fishermen. So finally, this is actually a screenshot of WhatsApp. So it happens, I think, 2 months ago during Ramadan. So at 5 a.m. in the morning, I received a call from fishermen. So he informed me that his father has not been back from the sea for more than 30 hours. So he asked my help to locate where his father is, and then I share him the coordinates of his father's vessel, and then 40 minutes later, he sent me this video. So he was very happy because he said that to some extent, if he don't get this location, something bad might happen to his father. So in conclusion, I can tell that there are more things to explore on PESCAS, and then in order for us to make sure that PESCAS is a success, we need strong collaboration between government, private partners, and there's also need to be more open towards technologies, especially for fellow fishers. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hafiz, and also thank you, Laura, for that very insightful presentations. We are a bit behind time, so unfortunately we won't be having our Q&A. But if you do have any questions, please do reach out to Hafiz and Laura, or if you have guests, you can reach out to us and they will connect you to our scientists.